no, city and zip. You guys figured out a different way to do city and zip code. It was email address and phone number that we needed in an index. And so I wanted to find out, what do people need to do with email addresses and phone numbers that you can't do now? So I don't even remember who brought it up.
Yeah, Lloyd, thanks for mentioning that. I'm not sure who had brought that up either, but I do remember those 2 points, phone number and zip code specifically being mentioned as things that would be sort of desirable to have indexed.
Or email address.
Hi, Amy. I know if I'm sorry I'm late. You're talking about the reindexing project?
Yes.
We brought up the phone number, I'm pretty sure, because we often are just trying to find any way we can to find patrons that have the same name as, particularly with, like, often Latino names are very rare, and it's people in the...
So you need to be able to search by phone number, basically.
We would love that. We would also like to search by birth date. That's another one from the patron record that we'd like to be able to search.
Oh.
And we brought that up before.
Birth date and phone number and email address?
I mean, yeah, if it's possible. I can think of several use cases. I don't know that we suggested that one, but that would be great.
I wonder if birth date and phone number can live in the same index. I kind of think they could.
One's a fixed field and one's a variable field.
Ooh, that might be a problem. I want to be able to search by birth date, search by phone number, search by email. So this is, okay.
Email and phone number might be able to live in the same index.
Yes, I'm sure they can. That was an idea that III pointed out to us, that those would be unique, and there would be no way that those could interact with each other. Birth dates and phone numbers are going to have different numbers of digits, aren't they? Yeah. Let's see, birth date would have 8 digits. Phone numbers have 10 digits, or 7 digits, but never 8 digits. So, yeah, those should be able to live in the same index too, I think. I'm not sure about the fixed versus variable field. I'll have to run that by III, but I think it's really possible they could all live in the same index. Is that it? Basically, you got state and zip code sorted out so that those are working now for what you need to do?
Who are you talking to?
I don't know. Whoever was concerned about states and zip codes.
So we have we have custom fields for state and zip code. The issue we always run into with anything custom is that when you try to pull in custom fields, you have issues with lining up things in print templates and stuff like that, because print templates are defined by their data library, and III doesn't usually include things like custom fields within a data library. They just don't have the ability to do that for everybody. So I'm not sure who all is actually using the city and zip custom fields for the patron record. I haven't even tried to do a search for that, but they were created, but I'm not sure who all is using them.
Okay, but they don't need to be in an index. It sounds like they're doing what people need with them. So I will go to III with the question of whether birth date and phone number can live in the same index, and we'll see. If they can, we'll probably move ahead with an index with the 3 of those, and then searching that would bring up a match on any one of those 3 things. I'm not sure what we'd call this index, but we'll have to think about that. Did anybody have anything else about the indexing?
Lloyd, thank you for following up with this and for bringing it up again. If we hear from anybody who might have some more points on those items, I'll definitely let you know.
Okay. Let me know if anybody realizes anything about this I need to know. Okay.
Okay. Thanks,
All
Lloyd.
right.
Our next item, Amy, thanks for joining us. Did you want to talk about the list of hold cancellation notices options? Amy? This is Amy from Garfield County.
Hi, sorry, I was muted. I didn't realize it. Yes, I'd love to. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, go right ahead.
You guys are looking at my patron record. And I'm going to go ahead and click cancel hold. And yes, on print hold cancel notice. And this top option is the one that I want to have either deleted or moved to the bottom of the list. The reason for that is this notice looks like this. And the bulk of our patrons are email notice patrons, and there's no option to check which box. And so the patron is left feeling very confused about what they're supposed to do now and aren't familiar with what that notice says. So I would just like to propose that option be removed or moved down the list so that it's not the one that's at the top.
Well, Amy, I think let me ask Brandon about that. I know, Brandon, when is this something that has to be done, like all the options that appear in that list of hold cancellation notice options? Does that entire list have to be updated, or are you able to just basically add new content?
With those, they can be. It does happen for everybody, but with those particular ones, we can remove them and change them around to different things. So that's not an issue. The exact order and everything shouldn't be a problem. We just need to know which one you want to be at the top.
And Amy, are you hoping to just add a new one, or are you hoping to?
No, I'm sorry. We already have the two that we use. They're at the bottom of the list. The top one says, the item is not available or lost. Please contact your library if you'd like to place that on hold again. And the second one is your hold was expired. So those are the only two we use internally. And so, I don't know if we want to have a larger discussion about, can we all use the same notice? Like what should the main option be? I think the top option should just say your hold was canceled. Please contact your library if you have any questions. Something like that, so that, it doesn't go into detail about any specific scenario, because people are just going to click yes here without knowing what's highlighted or what it says. And unfortunately, we don't get to see the text of these, so without testing each one, we don't have a way of knowing what they say. And so staff just click yes because they don't know which one.
Okay, Amy, thanks for explaining. That makes sense. Well, maybe we could do this. Maybe we could come up with some wording and kind of share that as a group. And, maybe by the time we can either do that via email or talk about it during our next ASC meeting and see if Brandon can make it the first option.
That sounds great.
Okay. Amy, if you have it sounds like you might have some language that's working well for your organization.
No, I don't mind sharing that at all. Let me just choose this top one right now, and then I'll email that to you. Our hold cancellations are on auto notice, so I won't get that till tomorrow, but I can forward it to you all.
Okay, thanks, Amy. I see some comments coming in. It sounds like there are a fair amount of libraries that aren't using that feature at all, and there's quite a bit of agreement in just getting a new one. So looks like we've got a fair amount of support here, and yeah, so that sounds great, Amy. Once you share that, we can go down the list, and as somebody also brought up a good point, Anna from Grand County mentioned that it would be nice to remove the unused options and shorten that list, which I think is a good idea. So maybe when we're talking about this, we can also see if there's any that aren't being used.
Sounds good. Brandon, do you have access to what all of those say so that we can just all see what they say, or would that be a lot of work for you to get each one?
So it's controlled within the text of notice. So I do have to go into each one individually and copy out the text that's already in there. So it would take me some time and some work to get it all together, but I think I could have it available by at least the next ASC meeting.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and forward out what our 2 notices say, and then come up with some wording that's just generic enough that it doesn't tell anybody anything. Not that that's helpful, but we can go from there to figure out what would actually be helpful.
Okay, thanks everyone. It sounds like we've got a good plan moving forward. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add to that conversation? Amy Courier mentioned that it might be like using a generic one would probably be useful. That most of her patrons generally contact them anyway if they get one of those kinds of notices. I think that's probably been our experience too. I mean, we've changed ours as well, Amy, for Mesa County Libraries, and ours says something along the lines of, it's very generic, saying something like, the item you have requested is unavailable. We'd like to look into our alternatives. Please contact us at this number. And it lists the phone number. But I agree. I think getting into the more generic kind of content there would probably be wise. Perfect. Okay. Okay, good. Well, we did have one last item on the agenda here. Now that was for me about the changes to the self-registration form. And that was something that I had a request to bring up for somebody who couldn't be here today. But I know that via email we were talking about any possible changes to the self-registration form for like a digital or an online library account. At Mesa County Libraries, we call it our online only or online use account. And basically, I believe that there were just 2 changes being discussed. One was adding another address field if the physical address was different from the patron's mailing address. And the second point, that at least a phone number or an email address would be required for a card that would have checkouts on it. So I don't think there was a whole lot of, I think there was general consensus on that, but was anybody aware of, or did anybody have anything that they wanted to address? Anybody have any questions just in general about that form?
I know on the note itself, the only against feedback that I got regarding that was that with these cards, Inglewood tries to make it as seamless as possible for patrons to get an account. So, having things like requirements that are actually required is kind of a preventative to that, essentially. So that was like the main point of feedback that we got. Now we can make things look like they're required, but not actually be required to submit the form. And I'm not sure if that's good enough to say, hey, at least draw attention to that specific area rather than actually enforcing it.
Brandon, thanks for mentioning that. I see one comment. It looks like that Grand County is using this form, and I know that there's probably a handful of libraries that are or are not using it. Okay. Doesn't sound like there's any really thing for or against that. So Brandon, I'll make sure to let that person know kind of the outcome of this conversation, and looks like there's no need to add more changes or restrict any of those changes.
Sounds good. Thank you, Austin.
So, absolutely, Brandon. Thank you for updating that. And that's the last thing that we have for our agenda for this month's meeting. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to discuss at this time?
Well, I sent out an email to folks via all points that we are working on scheduling the next year upgrade. So what we've kind of settled, at least in the Martin office, is the late night of February 26th through to the early morning of the 27th. We plan to do this upgrade how we've done in the past, where we don't cause any downtime during actual hours. So that's the plan. With this upgrade, we do have the ability to move the fines paid history, and there's It's mainly the fines paid, moving the fines paid history from its current database source into Postgres. Now, what that means essentially is that right now, fines paid history cannot be found in Sierra DNA, the SQL database where we are able to run queries and things like that, because it's built into the old way that Millennium used to do it, so it's not accessible via SQL programs and things like that, or Tableau. So what moving that data into a Postgres database would do is it'd make it to where we have access to that via SQL programs and Tableau, to where we can view fines paid history, that sort of information. What it does is, after we do the upgrade, part of the upgrade is basically, my understanding is a checkbox that says convert that data. And what will happen is all the data that we have in our fines paid history will be converted after the system comes up. From what I've seen on the Sierra listserv, this process runs for the, it really depends on the size of the data, but it can run for the next few days. No one's mentioned any performance conflicts or anything like that. The only issues might be having trouble viewing some of that fines paid history for them while that system is being converted. So that's the only thing that I'm aware of that might cause some strangeness the day after the Sierra upgrade. But I think that's something we'd like to do, is to get all that, at least as much information as we can, into the Postgres database. Does anyone have any feedback on that?
Brandon, this is Anna at Grand County. Is there any discussion of just having like maybe 2 years worth or something and not keeping, I mean, how far back does fines paid go? I don't know. I guess I'm just wondering if, is there a way to ease that data load for you guys if we don't have to have a history of fines like since the beginning of time on file?
I'm not sure if there's an option to limit it. I think it kind of behaves essentially like item record updates and stuff like that. So it's just from back to 2015 is essentially as far back as it would go, because that's as far back as the data that we have from when we converted over. So yeah, I think it only goes back to 2015 at the latest. Maybe a little bit earlier than that, possibly. But I don't think it would be a huge issue as far as what we're concerned about. My understanding is it processes from the current date back. So anything that is processing that you need access to will happen the soonest. We are also planning on moving the Sierra server into our new server that we have. You might have seen some all points from JB about the new Sierra, not the new Sierra server, but the new server that we're getting in here at the Marmot office. It goes from the gigabit connection into a 10 gigabit connection. So it should theoretically speed up the processes that occur on the Sierra server. So things like that conversion should happen a lot quicker than they would if we were staying on the same server we're on now.
Gotcha, thanks.
Well, Brandon, thank you for bringing that up and for keeping us kind of posted about, you know, this big change.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that probably brings us to the end of the meeting. Unless there's anything else anybody would like to go over.
Hey, Austin, this is Anna at Grand County, and I didn't put this on the agenda, but I was just wondering if anyone has a good way to get collection values. I've pulled data out of Sierra, but I'm questioning how accurate it is, and so if anyone has a good method of determining collection values, I'd love them to email me off off the list, I'll put my email in the chat. We had a flood in one of our libraries, and so the insurance company's requiring all this data about values of the collection, and just the numbers that I'm getting out of Sierra seem to be inflated. So I'm just wondering if anyone else has a good method for handling that.
So Anna, this is Brandon. Do you know if your item records all have the price information within the item record?
Yeah, and that's what is surprising is a lot of them don't, and so that's coming in as 0. But then, I mean, for this small library, I'm getting like almost $150,000 worth of media, and so I don't know. I'm just so yeah. When I pull the data and I do a little sampling, a lot of the things come up with a 0 amount, which so you'd think it would be less. It would be lower than we were thinking it would be, but it seems instead to be higher than we were thinking. So I'm not sure if it's also because we have a few items that like something got miskeyed in the price, and so maybe it's coming up high, or I'm not sure. I just don't know how to know if this number is any good or not, basically.
Yeah, I would almost be interested in just pulling out, doing an export of a create list or something like that, and then making sure that price is included in that, and then seeing what the individual prices are. If you do have one of those outliers, those inflated values that might have been miskeyed, that would be apparent within, by pulling that particular export into an Excel spreadsheet and then sorting based on the price, you would be able to determine those fairly quickly. As far as, assigning values to the ones that don't have anything that have zeros in them, there might be generic, hey, this is an audiobook. Generally, on average, an audiobook costs this much sort of thing, and then applying that times the number of audiobooks that you have, doing the kind of the same thing with books and DVDs and things like that. That way, you would have a generalized value that's average, but it wouldn't be the individual values. That's just something that came to mind really quickly was, because we've done that with libraries before where they don't have price in the item record at all. So they have to come up with a generic value for the different things, different pieces of their collection.
Well, right, and the other issue with that is that we use the retail price in that field, because if a customer or a patron were to lose or destroy an item, then we would charge them. But then the retail price doesn't reflect what our actual price is that we paid. So then, or I guess that's the other question I have is the value based on what we actually paid or what the value would be in the open market? Like, I don't know. Because we put in the retail price rather than the discounted price we get.
Anna, this is Amy, Garfield County. I'll contact you offline. I have an asset report that our finance manager uses for the year-end auditor, and it has like a formula that we use for figuring out the value, and it's always been okay with our auditor. So if that works for you, I can email that to you right now.
Yeah, that would be awesome, Amy. I appreciate it. That might satisfy them just so I can get that all to the insurance company.
It also looks like Diane from Eagle Valley chimed in over chat as well if you wanted to take a look at that.
Okay, thanks guys. I appreciate it. I just never know where to ask these questions, so I figure I'll throw it out there.
That is a good question. Definitely very interesting. And sorry to hear about your library. That's a shame that you had some flooding.
Yeah, broken pipes up here because of the temperature swings we've had a few in the last few years. It's tricky.
Wow. Yeah, I bet. Well, good. I hope you're able to get that figured out and situated soon. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss today? Okay, everyone. Well, our next ASC meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 13th at 10 a.m. Let me know if you have anything to add to the agenda. At this point, point in time, the only thing that I was thinking about talking about is just a quick reminder to everybody. I know everybody was going to collect some information on temporary RFID tags, and we were going to revisit that subject back in April. So I'll just kind of bring that up just as a reminder, but if you have something else to add, let me know. Thank you all for being here today.